Good morning and welcome to Lovin Live. I'm Lovin Daily. I'm Julian Bonnici and this is Sam Vassallo. How are you, Sam?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Very well. Just a quick rundown of some stories we're going to be discussing today. The first is an update about the COVID-19 cases in Malta and actually news of a fatality abroad. There's actually some more updates from within the Open Center, including an escape of a COVID-19 patient. We're also discussing a Maltese elderly couple who was stuck on a cruise ship and has actually been allowed to return back to Malta, a landmark judgment in domestic violence, and an interesting initiative for Malta's frontliners. Just a quick reminder that Lovin Daily is brought to you by Bold Food. Essentially, all you need to do is mention a restaurant on Bolt that you love and why you love it, and you could win a €50 voucher. There's a winner every day. Yesterday's winner was Mariah Ann Fennec, and her favorite restaurant was Shakina. Sam, have you ever been to Shakina?
No, I've never been, but I love
It's,
Indian food.
it's actually really, really good. I genuinely recommend it, and I'm actually quite jealous of Mariah Ann for winning it. On to the first story, Sam.
For sure. So we'll start with our daily COVID-19 roundup of cases. So yesterday, 14 new patients were confirmed to have COVID-19, bringing the total number in Malta to 241. 5 people have recovered, however, so that is good news. There were 550 tests conducted yesterday, according to Superintendent Charmaine Gauci. There is one person, however, in ITU using a ventilator. However, reports say that his situation is improving. In less good news, a Maltese woman has died of COVID-19 in the UK, weeks after her brother offered his hospital for coronavirus patients. The woman was Rosalie Freestone Bays, a 77-year-old Maltese woman, and her brother was actually Frank Portelli, who was, as you know, a Maltese doctor, former president of the Nationalist Party, as well as owner of St. Philip's Hospital. Now, Portelli had offered his hospital to the government to be able to treat COVID-19 patients. However, it seems that the government is going to continue with its plan with the prefabricated ready-made hospital. What do you think of this?
No, yes, I mean we'll see how things are going to develop. I guess the government knows the way forward, but obviously on a UK front, there's also been actually some bad news with their own prime minister. No, I think he's Boris Johnson has actually been moved to intensive care on COVID-19. Actually, quite some worrying news on that end. But on an international front, I don't know if you saw. But there's actually been some good news in Austria and Denmark. So in Austria, they're the first European country to sort of map out a plan to loosen lockdown measures. You know, there are shops going to be opening from Monday, so maybe they're going to give us a bit of a sign of what of things to come. Meanwhile, Denmark actually are reopening their schools and kindergarten. So hopefully, I mean, we're starting to see what life would out of lockdown could look like.
Yes, a giving of hope for Europe.
Give me a few finally. To move on a little bit, we've actually had quite a few issues within Malta's largest open center in Ħal Far. So yesterday there was news that a COVID-19 patient had actually escaped from Sir Paul Boffa Hospital. It later turned out that this was a Ħal Far resident who had actually escaped and went back to the Ħal Far Open Center to be treated at the Red Cross clinic over there. The man didn't have any contact with anyone outside the center and has since returned to Sir Paul Boffa Hospital. Obviously, very worrying, but there are actually some growing issues within the open center itself. So there have been 8 confirmed cases within 24 hours. The numbers are at least the people are worrying that they could potentially grow. Quarantine measures designed to halt an outbreak are failing to address maybe warning signs of a spread. Residents within the open center actually spoke to Love in Malta and sent in photos, videos, you name it, of the state of the facility. So you're seeing a lot of people grouped up together. They're sharing bathrooms, sharing public spaces. it's growing to actually quite a worrying scenario. There's a population of over 1,200 people over there, and social distancing is simply impossible. I was looking at sort of comments yesterday, and I just want to pass on the message that, listen, regardless of whether you believe irregular migrants, refugees, asylum seekers should be in Malta, we need to address this issue head on, because if there's a major outbreak and it spirals out of control within the open centre, we're all going to feel it, because all our healthcare system is going to be affected. So now is not the time to stay debating about whether a refugee should be in the country or not. The debate should be, how are we going to protect these people and ourselves? What do you think about it, Sam?
It's no time to exclude certain, especially vulnerable communities in Malta. This is something, as we know, COVID-19 doesn't care about nationality, about politics. The situation in the open centre just further highlights the inhumane conditions that these people are subjected to, and that social distancing really is a privilege, because not everyone has, the means to be able to stay 3 meters apart from others, to wash their hands regularly, access to medicine, access to hand sanitizer, so this is something that's super worrying, and we'll see how this progresses as the weeks go by.
Yeah, if you want to hear actually more about it, today at 11:30 a.m. our episode of COVID Called, we've actually got Home Affairs Minister Byron Camilleri, we've got Opposition Spokesperson Beppe Fenekadami, and we're also speaking to some migrants and refugees from centres across the island. So tune in, it's sure to be an actually interesting episode. So shall we move on a bit, Sam?
For sure. So in better news, the Maltese elderly couple who were stuck on the cruise ship have been repatriated to Malta on humanitarian grounds. As you know, the Maltese couple who were both age 70, Joseph Mercia and Maltese Bonello, had been stuck on a cruise liner that had left Australia in February. So they had been on this cruise liner since February. Of course, in the meantime, global pandemic, the route was cancelled, and the cruise was set to make its final destination in the UK. However, it was set to refuel and get some supplies in Maltese waters, and so they had appealed for a sea repatriation, because, as you know, the situation in the UK is not yet stable. It may have posed extra risks for them to make the journey all the way back to the UK. So luckily, through direct government orders, they have been repatriated yesterday.
No, that's, good news for them, I suppose. And I'm sure people are happy, thankful that the government is actually working not to just repatriate this couple, but sort of a lot of people who have been trapped outside of Malta. So I guess well done to the government on that part. To move on a bit to something maybe not necessarily COVID related, but actually quite a monumental decision. So in a landmark ruling, Malta, the state, was found guilty of failing to protect a woman's life from abuse from a previous partner. The woman ended up being awarded around 5,000 euros in moral damages. Now, the main issue was that sort of the reports of abuse, of domestic abuse, were sort of able to go unnoticed by the system. The woman filed various reports at different stations, and the abuse was allowed to continue. So the court essentially ruled that the state had a positive moral obligation to protect the woman's human rights. They failed to do it, and basically the woman suffered psychological traumas, not only because her husband was abusing her, but because the state failed to adequately address the scenario. We've already, Lovin Malta has already reported extensively that the police receive around 4 reports of domestic violence every day. Now, these reports rarely translate into convictions or actual court cases. Last year, there were only 12 convictions in domestic violence. So for the number of reports, it's simply not the number you want to be seeing, especially when domestic violence is such a pervasive issue in Malta. Your thoughts, Sam?
It is a landmark case, and I hope that this exposure of these systematic failings in how our state deals with such a pervasive issue will lead the way to implement those effective remedies. I mean, the work that Women's Rights Foundation does, Dr. Lara Dimitrovich was one of the lawyers who led the case. I mean, the situation in Malta is dire when it comes to domestic violence, and conditions of self-isolation due to COVID-19 further exacerbates this. So I'm really hopeful that changes are coming.
Yes, and we can't remember that just a few weeks ago we had cases like Chantal Ketkuti who ended up with a knife in her head. We've had horrific murders, horrific cases, and enough is enough. Just because COVID came doesn't mean we can forget about them. We need to actually address it. So let's try and move on, maybe something a bit more positive, Sam.
For sure. Do you know what next week is?
What?
It's Easter.
Yeah. Actually, I did see my mother making fogolli, so I knew it was coming.
Literally the only reason why I think it's Easter, because everything just feels the same in these weeks. But for this Easter, there's a new initiative launched to show love and support for the frontliners, battling COVID-19. As you know, in the previous weeks, we've had those initiatives of, clapping outside the windows for support, children drawing drawings in support of the frontliners. And now we have this new initiative where basically they're asking participants to print this picture of a heart, to color it and just hang it on your front door to just be like, thank you for all that you do, thank you for keeping us safe. And this is an initiative, I believe, that is hosted by Times of Malta and the Salot.
No, yes, actually really good. And I think in these times when we're always seeing such negative news, it's important that we all come together and show our support for one another. That's all we have for today. Thank you all for joining. Just a reminder, Lovin Daily is brought to you by Bold Food. We're running a little competition. All you need to do is mention the restaurant on Bold that you love, why you love it, and you get a €50 voucher in return. We have a winner every day. We even had a winner yesterday. Maybe it's your chance to get a €50 voucher and enjoy a really good meal. Thank you. Bye.